All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everyone.
All right, and we got some big news today. Cody, hit it. What's going on?
Well, I think this came out maybe a few days ago as we've done this. Anyway, though, there's a nonprofit organization called Equal Citizens, and they came out with their POTUS1 rankings, where they went through each candidate's policies and platforms and said who got their grade of approval and who didn't. In a minute, we'll go over and go more in depth of who this organization is and what they're talking about, but what stuck out to us is of the two candidates that received an A+, one of those candidates was Andrew Yang. And so we're going to take a deeper look into that. A really quick overview of what Equal Citizens is. Here we go, their mission. So Equal Citizens is one simple but incredibly important mission: to fix democracy by establishing truly equal citizenship. Once we as a nation have done that, we may then take on all the other challenges facing us. The good news is, since Congress created this problem, Congress can fix this problem. The legislation to do so has already been written. Now it's simply a matter of making sure Congress hears our voices and acts to make us truly equal citizens. Going through some of just like the people that are, that make up the board of the group. Looks to be more of a kind of progressive Democratic group. Nothing crazy or that far out there, more progressive Democrat. And that's what stuck out to us and kind of wanted to spur this video is, obviously, if Andrew Yang wants to be the Democratic nominee for president, he's viewed more as a kind of moderate, some people call him the libertarian Trojan horse candidate, but you know what I mean? Like, he comes across as someone that isn't necessarily your true blue Democrat, full-on progressive. And he's going to need their support. So I think this is a cool way to look into what the progressive wing might be saying about him.
And I find this so interesting that obviously you could just tell by its name and by its, a lot of the writing on it that it's a progressive organization. And there's two types of progressive organizations: the kind that completely make me bristle, and then the kind that are full of really, really good people who are willing to embrace fresh ideas. And the fact that he is given an A+, which is really interesting, with Kirsten Gillibrand next to her, like I could see why the intersectional brand of progressives that honestly I really can't stand and I fear to a certain extent would like Kirsten Gillibrand, but I could see a ton of things that they would really dislike about Andrew Yang. Everything from his policies on like Bitcoin and immigration to not being willing to do gun confiscation, So I think it's actually kind of hilarious and very interesting that Andrew Yang's got an A+ from them. And it also demonstrates the fact that Andrew Yang is such a different candidate that like libertarian groups can be rooting for him.
Oh yeah.
While simultaneously progressive leftist groups, most people kind of accept on the spectrum of political thought that on the furthest right, you get the libertarians that are like least amount of governmental intervention anywhere. They argue against freaking driver's licenses at their
driver's license. No, hold on. Libertarians argue against things like, but things we can't talk. They argue against things that you think that why don't we have a law for this? And they say, well, it shouldn't be laws for anything.
So they are basically like 1 foot in the anarchist, pool.
Hey, no flame to libertarians. Just they are a group of people. Yeah, like you said, they will argue against
Andrew Yang himself
things.
said on the Nerds for Yang interview that, hey, I have a huge libertarian streak. Anybody that watches this show knows that both you and I have very large libertarian streaks. But I think it's so interesting that how is it possible that there's a candidate that all the libertarians are rooting for, saying, oh yeah, dude, yeah, he's got good ideas, while simultaneously the farthest left progressives are arguing for, saying, oh yeah, he's got good ideas. And like the Gavin McGinnis's, Tucker Carlson's, and Ben Shapiro's in the middle are kind of rooting for, saying, oh yeah, he's got good ideas. Maybe he's just got enough crazy ideas. Maybe those 110 policy proposals are like finally panning out. I don't know what it is, but it intrigues me that not only is he even listed here, but he's also listed higher than some of these left-wing darlings.
Well, hold on. Why don't we get into the actual list
get into
himself? The reason I don't know, full disclosure, I don't know everything there is about Equal Citizens. Looking into them, don't think they're the most progressive group ever, but they're a Democratic group, and it looks like, I want to point this out. Before she dropped out of the race, Kirsten Gillibrand was probably one of the more. I know a lot of people who were Democrats who said I liked a lot of her stuff, and then in the last few years she kind of did some things I didn't like. Anyway, though, let's look really quickly at what did they say Andrew Yang gave them their A+ rating.
Yeah, this is interesting.
So Canada's policy positions, everyone's vote should count equally, and this is so. I think the reason why too, though, I want to get into this. when it comes to voting rights, he is definitely way more further left than other issues because he wants statehood for D.C. and Puerto Rico to increase their voting power, promote the use of the efficiency gap to measure partisan gerrymandering when evaluating and drawing district maps, proportional allocation of electoral college votes, and then end gerrymandering with independent redistricting and commissions. And when it gets to voting rights, automatic voter registration, ranked choice voting, make Election Day a holiday, and lower the voting age of 16. Well, so I'm not a huge fan of. I don't think it's a big deal. People make a way bigger deal about it. I think they should on both sides. It's like, it's 24 months. We can calm down. And then money in politics, public financing of elections, provide every eligible American voter with $100 of democracy dollars for each federal election cycle, a voucher they can use to support candidates of their choosing, and then overturn Citizens United.
Yeah, that's their pet peeve right there. The second you say you're going to overturn Citizens United, they're going to love you. But the democracy dollars that I actually very much kind of agree with, even if it's kind of like a UBI for.
Well, no, it's not.
It's like a UBI, but just for politics.
No, it's not.
What do you mean? No, it's not. It's similar in its vein that everybody gets this unconditional amount that is of a voting age in order to contribute to campaigns.
Yeah, but it's more like a once a year voucher you get that allows people to kind of come together and increase their voting power.
just because the frequency is different doesn't mean that the spirit of
What does the I stand for on income?
Okay.
Or what does the I stand for on UBI?
I'm trying to say there's common threads.
No, a little bit. But
there's a difference in the letter of the law and the spirit of the law,
No,
but the
it's-
spirit of the democracy
it's more of a
dollars is in
voucher.
the similar vein as the spirit of the UBI, okay?
Not really.
So, anyway, the only thing that bothers me about the first three, though, is it kind of goes along with, okay, Andrew Yang, how are you actually going to implement UBI when all of a sudden you have the AFL-CIO fighting against you, and then also a Senate that's not under your control because you're not a legislator, you're just the president. I look at some of these candidate policy positions and I wonder, okay, equality citizens and Andrew Yang's intern that wrote this or whoever wrote it.
He wrote it.
You want statehood for DC and Puerto Rico? Okay, well, guess what? Puerto Rico's voted that down multiple times. There's been many times, at least according to the best of my understanding, where statehood has been on the table multiple times for Puerto Rico, but the mandatory vote of the Puerto Ricans has actually stopped it. And that's why it is maintained as, I think it's a protectorship or a commonwealth. I can't remember the exact term.
Is it a territory?
But I don't think it's a territory. I think it's...
Well, look it up. I'll tell you in a minute.
You can look it up right now. But at least the way it was explained to me is that the equivalent of a statewide vote has to be held in which they also want to be made a state. Or there's some kind of vote that has to be done in which...
It's a territory.
Oh, it's a territory. Okay.
An unincorporated U.S. territory. That's what it's considered.
Okay, there we are. So,
well, hold on. One
the
second.
Puerto Ricans have turned it down.
Yeah, but I want to get back to the rankings because there's something else I want to
We
get to.
can't just march in and invade Puerto Rico and say you're a state now.
Yeah, well, hold on. Before we get to debating
Okay.
Puerto Rico, here is what they review. This is Equal Citizens candidate overview. Again, they gave Andrew
Okay.
Yang an A+ rating, and we're just going to go over what they actually have to say kind of as a general overview. Yang is pledged to fix democracy first. Overall, his ideas for democracy reform are impressive, particularly his democracy dollars proposal for public financing,
Okay.
which, by the way, is something that Kirsten Gillibrand also proposed.
Yeah.
Click here to see his full democracy reform platform. Oh, not to read that. Here are some policies he could adopt to approve his platform. A full end to felon disenfranchisement. I don't think I'll come around to that. Same-day voter registration. I don't know enough about that to get into what it is. And Yang is for voter ID. This is the one thing that kind of stood out to me in general with the views of this organization. They are very much against voter ID. Personally, like I said, it's one of those things. Look at the same way as lowering the voting age. I think people make too big a deal both ways. People can get government ID. They can. It's a real thing. Same way, 24 months is only 24 months for voting. Like the average person I know, you need a government ID to buy a lottery ticket. You need a government ID to like get into like theme parks sometimes. Like most people have them. So I don't see the big issue with it. Please let us know in the comments if there's some other stuff out there. Like I said, I haven't done the most research ever into this, but voter ID laws do seem to be one thing that I've noticed going through many candidates that sticks out. And I don't know very many candidates that are actually tracking well that are, I'll have to check. I think Warren might be, but for the most part, that seems to be something that most candidates, like there's like 15 different things we could reform with voting first, I guess, before we get there is my point.
Yeah, but see, this is where these progressive groups completely lose me. And I just think they veer irrational. Go back up to that list of here's what he needs to adopt. A full end to felon disenfranchisement. Look, I don't think it's fair that felons lose their ability to vote for life. Okay? And a lot of Rand Paul and Kamala Harris actually worked on this in some of her bail reform here in California. A lot of the calls to restore voting rights to felons, even though they got busted when they were 19, they still can't vote till they're 65. Restoring voting rights to people who have done their time, yes, but full felon disenfranchisement is this laughable notion that the Boston bomber, for example, should be able to vote from prison.
Well, hold on. That's
true. That was the example.
Okay, it is. But you know what? Why don't we start with like the 99% of people it affects first, and then we could talk about if the Boston bombers should be able to vote or not.
There's a difference between saying restoring voting rights to felons who have served their sentences. I am all for it. But I'm sorry. I don't think serial rapists, murderers, killers, and abusers should have, I don't think mafiosos that are serving 20-year sentences for having killed 20 people deserve voting rights from prison. I'm sorry.
That's
and this is coming from the same progressives that say, if you're mentally, if you have ADD or if you have depression, we should rescind your constitutional right to have a gun. They're all about taking away constitutional rights.
Well, hold on.
When it's guns.
Hold on. Nowhere on any of this stated on this website do they say they promote that. So
okay, I'm just saying progressives in general.
Hey,
fine.
You're just saying some random straw man you're talking about. This particular thing we're talking about never brings that up.
We'll move to same-day voter registration. I'm actually okay with same-day voter registration.
Yeah, what's wrong with it?
Because there's voting's a little bit hectic and problematic, and as long as you have an ID or some way of being able to just prove residency or address, I'm okay with that. This idea that you have no voter ID is ridiculous, because then you can literally go from precinct to precinct voting, and if you don't think they haven't done that before, you just need to go watch 5 Points. I'm sorry, what was the last Martin Scorsese movie about 5 Points New York? It was called Gangs of New York, right?
No, about 20 years ago now. But yeah, Gangs in New York, that was the film.
Yeah, in Gangs in New York, you had all the Irish gangs going from precinct to precinct voting, and then you had all of the other gangs going from precinct to precinct voting.
You can honestly make the argument that that is kind of the spirit of Western European
if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Well, so I mean, like, it's kind of been for so long the way things are done. I almost do wonder what would happen if we cleaned up and got the corruption out of our voting system. Like, we actually I don't think we've ever done that. And like, kind of like this modern 200-year system here. I wonder what would happen if we did.
Yeah, I'm totally down with same-day voter registration. We already had an entire video about the perils of lowering the voting age to 16.
Perils, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want 16-year-olds controlling our democracy,
Dude,
but I'm okay with them pre-registering.
Our democracy? How many 16-year-olds, one, exist, and two, would actually vote?
Okay. I shouldn't say controlling our democracy.
We're gonna live in fear of the 16-year-old voters, dude.
I should say we have enough immature idiots running around with their fickle minds being swayed to vote for the most idiotic of reasons. We don't need to add to that pool.
No, people are too dumb.
I'm with Joe Rogan.
People are too dumb.
Like, I think there should be a freaking civics test, all right?
No test. No, dude, here's the thing. I think American citizens have a right to vote. If we want to argue about a 24-month gap and when it is you vote, it's like recently in Los Angeles, they wanted to change the law. So, or they believe in all of California. So you could serve alcohol until 4 a.m. instead of 2. Now, the cutoff for when you can start serving alcohol again after you're mandated to stop is 6 a.m. And I ask myself, what is the point of not serving alcohol from 4 to 6 a.m.? Is there really any? Yeah, we're getting to the point now where it's like, what are we arguing about here? We're arguing about 120 minutes? Like, that's the big difference here. I feel like with this too, we get in these debates of lowering the voting age to 16. We are talking about 24 months, man. Think about how fast those go by. Trump's been in office longer than 2 years.
Okay, if it goes by so fast, why not wait? Because I really think 18-year-olds are more mature and make better decisions than 16-year-olds.
That's the other good point of the argument. That's why I say I think this is an argument that we can put off down the line for voting. Like, if we want to clean up voting in this country, we can get to lowering the voting age once we get past all the real problems. Because, like you said, the arguments are, well, why not lower it? Just a few years. Well, then why not wait a few years? And those are both valid arguments. So instead of wasting time on that, I like to get more into things like, I do agree with the idea of, if we clean up a lot of the abuses and fraud in our elections, then I have no problem with there being if Americans had a high level of confidence in our election system, nobody would care about any of these laws. If I felt like legitimately with ID or not, doesn't matter, they're not going to let someone vote twice, I wouldn't care if they had to have one or not. But the thing is, we don't trust these institutions. We feel like they need every legislation on the book on them, and then because of that, it creates these unwieldy systems. But before we go on way too long on this, the story is that Andrew Yang is one of the few candidates by this organization that was rated as their A+ candidate who is POTUS certified. And we wanted to go through, look at a couple others to get a better perspective of what that actually means. Or does it actually mean that they viewed him? And again, the only other candidate to review the A+ was Kirsten Gillibrand, one of the more progressive candidates. The only reason why I bring that up is because it's a support base. If Andrew Yang wants to win a primary, he can't just not have progressive voters. And I want to say it's universal, but I've seen a lot of progressive voters kind of say, there's things about him that he's not progressive enough, essentially. I mean, I've seen him get a lot of criticism for how he handled certain
I'm okay that he didn't
positions.
hit the top 3 bullet points
anyway,
on Kirsten Gillibrand's policy position.
Let's just run through those. So she wanted to end voter roll
absurd.
purging, give representation to D.C. and Puerto Rico. It's the same.
Fine.
Eliminate electoral college, and then ranked choice voting, which is all. But ranked choice voting is just kind of like the other thing. If you're not going to eliminate the electoral college, you can do something more like ranked choice voting. And then voting rights, same-day voter registration, require paper ballots, automatic voter registration, expand online registration, expand early voting, and make Election Day a holiday. She was big in it. Public financing voucher system, $600 in vouchers. Holy cow, man. She was going to give you some money.
That was crazy.
And then overturn Citizens United. Here, even with the A+, this thing she could have done better. A full, and this is the thing, like I said, not even like Kirsten Gillibrand, very progressive candidate, clearly very passionate about voter rights. I mean, she had a lot of policies.
They're passionate about power and willing to say whatever it takes to get there.
Oh my God. Okay, whatever. I mean, hold on.
I'm sorry. She does not have me sold.
Well, she dropped out of the race, so who cares? Anyway, what I think is fascinating about this is even Kirsten Gillibrand, like you said, did not want a full end to felon disenfranchisement. That seems to be something that this organization is very passionate about. Even Kirsten Gillibrand's like, look, I want to do 13 other things first. Then we can get to that later. Repeal discriminatory voter ideals. Again, most candidates, we get in these arguments about like those things you're talking about. Dude, your average citizen and candidate is at the point where they'll be like, yeah, I think there's some nuance to, maybe you shouldn't be able to vote from prison to make the crime you did not a crime anymore. But maybe if you got a DUI 12 years ago, you should be able to vote, right? Those are two different cases.
Well, if you got a DUI 12 years ago, you've paid your price already.
Exactly. So that's what I mean. Like, there's two different cases. The problem is we get into these arguments of why does the guy who just killed someone get to vote? It's like, well, maybe he doesn't then, and we can let other people vote. And the last thing, end gerrymandering with independent redistricting. These are all things that this organization thought that even, Kirsten Gillibrand, who clearly had some passion and really thought a lot about this, and had a lot of things she wanted to do. Even she was like, I don't think this is the way to go. So that's another really interesting takeaway, I think, from this.
Well, and it's obvious there's one thing that both of these candidates that received an A+ that none of the others have in common, and that's overturning Citizens United and having publicly funded elections.
Well, I believe overturning Citizens United, most candidates are on board for. I mean, that's kind of a layup for candidates.
Yeah, I get that. But the one thing that is different about both Andrew Yang and Kirsten Gillibrand is this public funding of elections. I mean, if you listen to Kyle Kulinski on Secular Talk and you listen to pretty much any other major leftist right now, that's huge on their radar. So I could see why this organization decided to like them. I'm actually grateful that some of the things they were prescribing to go further, Andrew Yang has not espoused yet. So anyway, that's the news there in the sense that it's interesting he's gotten an A+ rating as a political outsider over people like even Bernie Sanders. If you look at this, here's
hold on.
Andrew
Bernie got
Yang
the A. It's not like he was
with an A+, and Bernie and Beto only get a regular A.
Well, let's go through this really quickly. Let's see, because here's the other thing that you'll notice of the top 4 up here, 3 of them are POTUS1 certified. Bernie wasn't. So let's see again. And again, I'm not trying to say this organization is the word of law, but I do think it's so interesting to see what are some of these Democratic groups talking about, because, dude, a lot of these groups, all these people, this one I believe is, close to the Twitter. It's led by a gentleman he's a well-respected scholar and stuff. Like, these are the kind of people who they're going to be throwing their weight behind a candidate pretty soon. I mean, even like the people that are kind of, there's the partyists sort of like, we got to win this election. I don't even care who I like, who's going to win. But even the people that are more on board with their candidates, they're starting to wait and say, this is good. This is going to thin. So, and Bernie's trending down. So let's see what they didn't like about Bernie. So they think that Bernie could adopt, because Bernie Sanders, it looks like, does want to get rid of, he wants a full end to felon disenfranchisement. They like that about him. He wants to end voter ID. They like that about him. He doesn't want to end gerrymandering with independent redistricting commissions. I think he just hasn't been specific enough, I'm sure. Or maybe he doesn't at all. But that's one of those things most candidates are on board with.
Yeah, he hasn't stated a public financing plan. You're right. That's something Gillibrand.
Clarify public.
Yeah.
Same day. Interesting that he doesn't want same day voter ID. Maybe it's more of like, I got a better plan. It's more like that, unless like it isn't a good idea.
He just thinks if you have a heartbeat, you should be able to show up.
And he doesn't want same day registration, and he wants to eliminate or reform the Electoral College. Which, so am I understanding it? Wait, what? So wait, hold on. I think there's a typo. They like that he wants to eliminate the Electoral College, but he could improve wanting to eliminate the Electoral College. So I think that's just a typo in there. But again, it's worth noting these are the kind of, again, I think the takeaway here is I don't want to get too lost in the weeds about this particular organization's particular rankings. As you could see, President Trump, they gave an F. They are not fans of the current president. Also down here at the bottom, though, Joe Biden, he's down to Kamala Harris, front runners, are down here with the Tim Ryans and Tulsi Gabbards of the world, Bill de Blasio.
Tom Steyer's got to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to tell you, except for
ridiculous
Andrew Yang, this definitely does also seem to be a list that has one other common denominator. The more vocal you have been against Trump, it seems to be the higher up you get.
What?
Oh, come on. Tom Steyer?
Isn't Bill Weld primarying him?
Oh, yeah, but nobody's taking him seriously or even knows who he is.
Well, he's primarying the president, and he is a D. I don't think that's how it is. I think this is a group that's focused on election reform, and not all these candidates are. I think it's interesting that Miss A Million Policies, Elizabeth Warren, I know that's actually kind of rich coming from an Andrew Yang fan, being from someone with a lot of policies, but still. Even she got a B. What did they thought that she didn't have a public financing plan. She didn't want to end felon disenfranchisement. Dude, give it up, man. Most candidates don't want to full end, and then she doesn't have ranked choice voting. But if you want to limit the Electoral College, I think those are the same. You know what though? I apologize, man. Miss 1,000 Policies. They have 1,000 things they like about her. It's just again, which is really interesting. This is an overwhelming amount of policies they agree with about her, and this disagree with. So I think the bigger thing is this is kind of a organization letting people know. Pete Buttigieg, he's got a good rate. Marianne Williamson is one of the few that are POTUS1 certified. But again, I don't want to get too lost into the direct impact of this. I just want to highlight. Here is a group that is a Democrat group, like I said, groups that are going to have to start throwing their weight behind a candidate if they want them to win the primary, saying that of people still currently in the race as of today, Andrew Yang is their number one choice for president when it comes to his voter reform and electoral reform policies. I think especially with the 2016 election, how much of a big thing in the Democratic Party of reforming voting and changing the voting system and what happened in the election and making 2020 different, that's a big part of that kind of mainstream wing of the party. He's going to need to win the election. And here is a group that seems to be very passionate about that, saying he's our guy, we pick him. So that's my big takeaway. I said, I don't want to get too lost in exactly what they said and didn't say. Just here's at least another one of these more mainstream kind of, I don't want to say mainstream, but just kind of progressive Democrat groups saying we like Yang now. And I wouldn't be surprised if this came out 9 months ago. He'd be somewhere in the middle. And they'd be like, I don't know a whole lot about him, whatever. But now there is a chance some of these groups will start saying Andrew Yang's the candidate, guys. Fall in line. He needs to go.
All right, awesome. So anyway, let us know what you guys think about this. Please make sure you comment below. Give us your opinions on both the organization and also their rating of Andrew Yang. If you guys want to contribute to the channel, there's always the PayPal link in the description below. If you haven't pressed like, please make sure you like. And if you want to watch our last 2 videos, we'll include these at the end of the video. And also make sure if you haven't subscribed yet, Problem Solver Politics, that you smash that subscribe button. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you in the next video.